right, so here we are at the Florida Freedom Forum debate in Miramar, Broward County, where we just listened to the four Democratic gubernatorial candidates make their case as to why they think they will be the best person to occupy the governor's mansion in Tallahassee. That's Tallahassee Mayor Andrew Gilliam, business leader Chris King from Central Florida, Miami Beach Mayor Philip Levine, and former Congresswoman Wen Graham. So, Elizabeth, want to introduce yourself, I guess?
Yeah, well, I'm Elizabeth, and I am with FLIC Votes, and this is Tomas.
Also with FLIC Votes.
So we are here in the most Democratic county in Florida, in the most Democratic city in Florida, which is really the ideal location to have such a powerful and impassioned debate with so many candidates who are actually aligned on a lot of their views.
Yeah, absolutely. What did you think? Who did you like the best as a candidate?
Well, I mean, I think that there are definitely there's definitely some key differences between them. So I think that when it comes down to it, part of it is there's definitely a bit of an old guard with Wen Graham, who kind of comes from a political dynasty family.
Made everybody notice when she started, "Hi, Mom and Dad," at the crowd. Former Florida Governor Bob Graham in the audience.
What concerns me about her specifically is the fact that she has such a strong financial connection with the charter system. That was one of the ways that there was actually a lot of differentiation between her and some of the other candidates. A lot of them really railed against charter schools, and I mean, that's something that people really need to take into consideration when they're thinking about who they're voting and how they want the future of the education system of Florida to be. I also, Philip Levine, I thought, had a lot of really powerful things to say about the environment. I think that's one of the instances where I think he really shined. I think less so much in the debate, but more kind of you look into his past. There's some interesting things there to kind of take a look. What did you think of him?
So I thought that the major difference between Philip Levine and the other candidates was the fact that you could really tell that he is a millionaire business leader, but because of the fact that he kept touting the importance of the private sector. He talked about how corporate taxes in Florida, which are, I believe, 5.5%, are fair and they do not need to be raised. They just need to be implemented properly, which I don't think was a big winner with this crowd. It definitely wasn't a big winner with me. And he kept going back to that sort of talking point that the private sector and private industry can be a good influence in Florida, which may or may not have its merits, but whether the rest of the candidates really seem to take a government is good approach. So I thought that was like the main difference that I kept hearing from him throughout the debate.
Definitely a difference. Another difference that I noticed was with Andrew Gilliam, who said on stage, "I'm the only person here who's not a billionaire."
It's true.
And I think that he has a very powerful personal story. I think that his closing statement got more applause than I'd heard all night. I mean, people were literally hooting and hollering. It really got them going. And I think part of it is because he can say with real integrity, "I know what you're going through," because if you look at his personal past, you look at his history, you see the setbacks that he's had his own family and where he came from. It is actually very different from some of the other candidates where some of them may tout like they're from modest means, but it's upper middle class there's still a really big difference between some of the stuff that Andrew Gilliam went through.
Yeah, and Gilliam, he's from like a historic black neighborhoods in South Dade, really working class background. He really speaks from the heart and seems to get it. That being said, though, I wish that all the candidates would have been more substantive in some of the answers, because it really felt like they took some of the opportunities in questioning to just grandstand and speak on like very just broad campaign talking points. For example, when they were asked about driver's licenses for all Floridians, including undocumented ones, a lot of them just spoke about their need to combat Donald Trump's criminalization and how they stand with immigrants. And when Graham talked about how her husband works at FLIC and she's gonna ask him for advice, it was very just meandering. All of them really.
Yeah.
And I like the question was, what are your plans to grant driver's licenses for immigrants in Florida? And none of them really gave a substantive answer, and that happened a couple of times during the debate.
Yeah, definitely some lack of substantive answers. But one of the things that a lot of them did agree on was actually the Second Chances campaign, which I think that has bipartisan appeal. That's not really a political thing, that's Democrat or Republican. But they also actually talked a lot about criminalization, the over-criminalization of our population and the school-to-prison pipeline. Let's talk a little bit about the candidate we haven't mentioned very much. What did you think of Chris King?
I thought he was great, actually. I was really surprised by him. I mean, I've heard him speak before, and he always seems very progressive, but I've never heard him speak at length in a forum like this. And I was actually really pleasantly surprised. And as both of us that work in the immigrant rights movement and the immigrant issue, I was pleasantly surprised when he talked about how sanctuary cities is like a political, like the term is a political hot potato used by Republicans to politicize the issue. He just really seemed to understand like the minutia of like messaging and how it's framed to divide communities. So I was surprised by him.
So there was definitely a lot of points where some of them really went more in depth than others. But overall, how would you think about any of them being in Tallahassee?
I mean, any of the four candidates are a million times better than any of the Republican candidates. Let's be frank. I mean, they started the debate talking about how Adam Putnam failed to enforce background checks on weapons here in Florida, and just the dismal record that really the Republican Party has had for decades now here in Florida, and has really just led to horrible conditions, whether it's for the environment, for living wages, for healthcare for Floridians, for immigrants. I mean, having any of these candidates that more or less aligned on the issues, it would just be a vast improvement for the state, and would really, I think, just set us on the right track.
Yeah, and the things that they really talked about, these are in a lot of ways life or death issues for individuals and for entire communities. Whether you're talking about the environment and cities that are already getting sunny day flooding every day sometimes, depending on the season, or immigrants that are literally afraid to get services, afraid to call the police when they're really in danger because of what's happening. I mean, I think that the issues are so deep in Florida, and right now we've got Republicans at the Capitol and every stretch of government when it comes to our state government, and I don't know. I think we really need to give somebody else a shot.
I mean, seriously, like the previous governor, banned the use of the word climate change for public sector employees at the state level.
It's horrible. I don't know how we can imagine that when literally we live and breathe climate change. We see it in our daily lives. We see it in storms. We see it in flooding. We see it in some of the real terrible things that are happening to our environment, to the Everglades, and it's just, I mean.
And we're impacted by it. When Haiti gets hit by a hurricane. People come here when Puerto Rican brothers and sisters are hit by hurricanes. They come here. We're impacted in so many different ways by climate change that intersect with so many issues. And to have a governor who won't even acknowledge that it's a reality and literally try to police language around it is insane.
So I think that's some of the main points that we got from the debate.
Yes. Yeah. So we'll just tell all of you watching, get yourself registered to vote. And get involved and make a change this November 6th, because we drastically need it in Florida.
Yeah, we absolutely need it. Thank you.